This episode of the Linux Action Show is brought to you by the good-looking folks at GoDaddy.com. Use our code Linux and save yourself some cash. And welcome to the Linux Action Show, Season 19, Episode 9, streamed and released on Sunday, December 11th, 2011, live from a very toe-nipping Pacific Northwest. My name is Chris.
And my name is Alan.
Hey, good morning to you there, Alan.
Hey, Chris.
It's a big show today. We got a fun one coming up. In the second half of the show, we're going to have a local Linux blogger join us. His name is Matt Hartley, and he'll be covering sound card troubleshooting issues with folks. So, in-studio guest. I haven't told him yet that it's like 50 degrees in the studio. He has no idea what he's about to walk into, but that's okay.
Keep your coat on.
Yeah. And then in the first half of the show, we've got some interesting news. Of course, HP went open, or is going to go open source with WebOS. We'll cover that story. Also, Linux Mint is ruffling quite a few feathers this week, and we'll talk about that. Are they repeating the mistakes that Canonical made about a year ago? So stay tuned for that. And then also a bunch of other great news stories. But up first, it is our picks this week, and my Runs Linux. Well, it's either frightening.
It's so epic.
It is epic, right? Okay, see, I was going to wonder. I was going to say, Alan, you either think it's epic or you think it's frightening. Here it is. Check this sucker out. Hold on, before I go on, let me give you the description that the Redditor put in the subreddit. It is solar-powered, titanium-framed, fiberglass robots will swim around the world collecting ocean data, and they run Linux. And it's actually, if you're watching the video version, is a real treat because it looks like a tiny little boat with solar panels and a bunch of antennas just sticking off of it randomly. And they're going to swim around the world. There's going to be 4 of these guys, and they're going to spend 300 days. They're starting. Actually, they already started on November 17th, so that's pretty awesome. Collecting relevant ocean data there, Alan, which is always good.
Yeah, kind of actually reminds me of a DARPA project I saw for crowdsourced submarine driving.
Oh, interesting. Crowdsourced, huh? So like
yeah,
an automated...
so basically there's this game on Steam called Dangerous Waters, which is a submarine simulator made by the company that makes simulators for the U.S. Navy.
Oh, cool.
And they adapted the engine from that game to let you pilot a little unmanned submarine. And the idea was to just get hundreds or thousands of people playing this game and to have them actually like track down enemy submarines.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that sounds like exactly like the kind of thing that would be right up my alley. So that's really cool. I've got a neat game this week that isn't. I don't think you'll be able to get your hands on it yet, but it's really close, and you can get it on the ground floor. That'll be my universal app pick. And my Android pick this week is really great for all you news hounds, especially some of you who have been looking over at iOS, maybe with a little Flipboard MV. Got a pick for you. But first, it's time to say good morning to our great friends over at GoDaddy.com, where the beautiful Danica is sitting there to say good morning to the Linux Action Show viewers. You notice she's there every time we do the show. She's always there. She's there to say good morning to us. She loves the Linux Action Show. She also loves the fact that GoDaddy has a promo offer right now. We've always got our standard promo that has been tried and true with as long as GoDaddy has been with the Linux Action Show. You can use that code Linux to save 10% on checkout and Linux 20 to save 20% on hosting. And they've got their new 4G hosting that I've been playing with, and it's pretty great. But they're stepping it up for the month of December. I've got 2 exclusive December offers that expire at the end of the month. First one,
Christmas, right?
Yeah, it is. It's Christmas. They're little presents for everybody. The first one is $1.99 hosting for 3 months. Yeah, $1.99 hosting for 3 months. I'm not kidding. You can get that if you use the code Linux11 when you check out. But perhaps hosting isn't up your alley. Maybe you just want to... Maybe you want a holiday blog, right? Or maybe you want to just register a really awesome domain and forward it to jupiterbroadcasting.com to help us with SEO, but you don't want to put your private information on there. GoDaddy is offering free private registration for the Linux Action Show viewers for the month of December. Just use the code Linux17 when you check out. Linux17 when you check out to get free registration and no limited quantity. So if you're buying a whole batch of domains, that'll save you like $10 per domain. So that's a pretty good deal. So Linux 17 for that. And thanks to GoDaddy and the beautiful Danica for supporting the Linux Action Show and Jupiter Broadcasting. All right, let's move on. I'll go with my Android pick first, and then I'll give you my universal desktop pick. First up is a new release from Google themselves, and it's called Google Currents. Alan, have you had a chance to hear about this?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, this is one you have to get. All right, it's totally free, and it's Google's foray into taking what they call social signals and RSS feeds and curated stories and combining them into one app. So it can take RSS feeds, weight them based on how much people are sharing them on the social networks. You don't have to be involved with any of that. They just run those algorithms and then display them for you in like a magazine style that works on a phone or a tablet. And then they also have curated providers like Mashable or ReadWriteWeb or, a lot. Popular Science is another one where they will automatically populate their web content into this reader format. It's nice too because it's almost
cool.
like a readability version of their websites. You don't have to deal with their ads as much or a lot of the more obnoxious things they might have. And
especially when you're on your phone, tiny screen.
Yeah,
you
dude,
just want
totally.
the news.
And it integrates with Google Reader, so if you're already a Google Reader user, it'll pull down those feeds. And, which is a nice thing to be able to say, the Android version is nicer than the iOS version. So
Yes.
those Android users, they get a
It's
little
always
extra.
nice.
They get a little extra app there. This is it's a great looking app. It's kind of Google, I think, saying, look, this is how you can make a beautiful Android app full of content. And, they've put it out there for free, of course. And I think if you're a Google News reader and things like that, this is a natural fit. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, as well as a link to every app pick that we've done. In fact, I got to check this. Somebody, if you're still in the chat room, who registered Epic App Picks or epicapps.mobi? Something like that was registered. Epic App Picks or some epicapps.mobi was registered by a viewer to get you to all of the picks that we've done. Dreamsvoid, what was the URL? He's in the chat room. That's a great use, by the way, of our GoDaddy promo codes. If you want to get a domain and help us out and point to something, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, there you go, epicapps.mobi. And that is a redirector URL that will take you to all of the Android picks that I've done yet. Thanks to Majo for keeping that list up to date, and thanks to Dreamvoid for redirecting his domain that he wasn't using. So that's epicapps.mobi, and that'll take you to the full list of all of the Android app picks that I've done. Also a link in the show notes. All right. Now, my Linux desktop pick this week is kind of fun. It's an open source game that's coming to Linux, and they're doing a Kickstarter project to get things started. And if you get involved, even for pretty low dollar amounts, donations starting at $1 will get you some exclusive things for this game. And this is looking really cool. It's called Pissed Off Penguins. I don't know if you got a chance to see this, Alan. It's really funny. This guy is putting together a game where you'll be able to kind of a take on Angry Birds, only you're shooting penguins out of cannons, and they have like Batman boomerangs and those kinds of things. And this was submitted on the Linux Action Show subreddit, and I love this guy's approach. He's made a video kind of describing what the game is, and anytime that a guy's coming out there and saying, my platform of choice for releasing my game is Linux, that kind of gets my attention. It's a 2D game.
That seems like the perfect mix of Angry Birds and Smash the Penguin.
And thanks to Metal Freak for adding that to the Linux Action Show subreddit at links. No, that's TechSnaps at linuxactionshow.reddit.com. We have subreddits for both this show and for TechSnap, and they're an awesome place to get some of the stories and submit suggestions for the show.
No dark birds.
All right, Alan, let's do the news. All right.
Righty then.
Alan, the top story on the news docket for this week. Oh boy. HP announces their intention to open source WebOS. And man, could I not be more excited about this. I have been on the show pleading that we need another competitor to Android in the open mobile OS, and WebOS is great. I love WebOS so freaking much that I actually keep the VM right here handy in studio for me to just play with from time to time. And I'm actually this is it right here. I have this is the WebOS SDK that I just have loaded on my machine. It's just such an elegant, beautiful operating system. It has so many great features. I haven't started this VM up in months. And I loaded it up this morning just to play with it, and all of my calendar appointments were immediately up to date. My photos synced instantly. There was no lag while the operating system came back up to date with all of my cloud accounts, and it was completely seamless. And HP has been around a lot of different areas on what their approach is going to be with WebOS. At first it sounded like it was sort of dead. Then they came out 2 weeks ago and they said, well, we're going to have a big HP WebOS meeting. We're going to announce something. Stay tuned. They came out and they said, all right, we don't have anything to announce yet, but come back in 2 weeks and then we'll have something to announce. And that's literally what happened. And we thought, well, boy, what are they going to announce? So Meg Whitman, the new CEO of HP, who is apparently, a lot of people gave her some crap when she took over, but so far I'm liking what she's doing. She came out and said, we're not going to kill WebOS. In fact, we're going to continue to developing on WebOS. We're going to start a council to submit WebOS over to so they can select the appropriate WebOS open source license. They can form a community, and there's some components in WebOS that we're going to have to develop on separately to get them ready to go out to the community, because they're not necessarily open sourceable, maybe because of IP restrictions or things like that. So they're actually even committing to working on replacing some of the code that's in the OS, which is awesome. And then she went as far as to say they may even begin to start shipping WebOS tablets in 2013. New tablets. So the touchpad 2.0 or something might actually survive. Now you're an Android user. I'm an Android user. Do you think there's room for another mobile OS?
Yeah, I think having this choice there will drive more development in both sides. Right? When you have somebody to compete against, you work harder.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. Yeah.
So Android will be better just because there is an alternative to it.
And you don't think iOS
same with WebOS. Well, iOS is not different. The same level of an alternative.
Right. It can't be like a universal platform that people just adopt like Android can be.
And, especially if it becomes to the point where you have your hardware and you can choose to run Android or WebOS on it.
Right. Yeah.
And, that may be the only way to prevent future things like carrier IQ.
Yeah, true. Absolutely.
Is that, if people have somewhere to go and you keep treating them badly, then they will go.
I've always wondered if WebOS or Android really took off and the community could really get their hands on it, if you wouldn't start seeing desktop spins of it, or things like that. So we'd be curious to see if it...
Well, because, you called that for Android, and I think there's still a good chance of that happening, especially now that they're doing very well porting it to x86.
And you've seen devices like the Asus Transformer, which almost looks like a laptop, really.
Exactly. And, the next step is, netbooks running
Yeah.
The Android type OS.
I agree. All right. Well, that's an interesting story, and one that, of course, we'll continue to follow. There's not a ton to cover at this point because it's all.
It'll be interesting to see what license they go with.
Yes. They're doing it right. They're not picking directly themselves, so I'm sure they'll still have the final say. But they say they're going to turn it over to a committee to pick.
Right. And it's just, I wonder what their considerations are.
Yeah.
If you want people to be able to make divergent devices out of it, then something like BSD is better. But if you want to try to keep all the features on all the devices and prevent fragmentation, then maybe the GPL type thing is better.
Right.
Some people have suggested the Apache license. That might make sense just because of the anti-patent clauses that the Apache license has.
Yep.
But at the same time, that could end up causing problems.
Yeah, I would think that their number one goal would be to compete with Android. So whatever license helps them accomplish that goal will be the one they pick, and that's just however they interpret that.
Right, and I just think that they'll get more adoption hardware-wise if they offer BSD. Because then, you could take WebOS, you can do your custom stuff to it, and have that as your advantage.
Be interesting. We'll follow pretty closely to see where it goes. It's obviously big news. It's a very, it's truly a Linux platform. You can bring up a terminal and there's a Linux command line there and all the tools. So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's talk about Linux Mint. It's sort of upset some people in the community this week. You remember about a year ago or so, Canonical changed the URL structure in Banshee so that when somebody bought music, instead of the Amazon referral credit going to Banshee directly, they changed it so that it was eventually a rev split between Ubuntu and the GNOME Foundation, like a 25% rev split. So OMG Ubuntu has been leading this story here, and they found a long forum post where somebody detected that indeed Mint had changed those URLs again now in their version of Banshee so that 100% of MP3 purchases in the Amazon MP3 store would be credited to the Mint project. Did you hear any of this, Alan?
No, but while I see that it makes sense on their side, this seems kind of mean to do to the Banshee guys who actually built the software.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And when Canonical did this, Brian and I just railed on them on the show. But the situation is a bit different, and the way the OMG article is kind of written, it kind of makes it sound like the Linux Mint project changed it from the Banshee project's URL. And what they actually did was they updated because remember their upstream provider is Ubuntu. So when they pull in from Ubuntu, they got the version Ubuntu's version of the package, which has it changed to the canonical URL, right?
Right. And so they just swap that out with their own.
Right. And the reason they say, now this is a forum post by Clem, who is the originator of Linux Mint, and he said that what it was that the redirector URL that Banshee does use in their original upstream package doesn't work anymore. So, and actually, if you go to that URL, you get a 500 internal server error. So he said, look, the URL didn't work anymore, and we were changing it anyways from what Canonical changes, so we just changed it to our own. But he said, in the grand scheme of things, we've earned $3.41 on this. So should we give that money to Banshee? Should we give that money to Canonical?
Well,
we don't care.
It seems that if Banshee's URL doesn't work, then it makes sense to take their share until they fix that.
Yeah,
and
it's a sticky
Ubuntu
situation.
doesn't have a stake in Mint's user base, so
right.
It seems less big of a deal than it was. Now, if they were taking it away from Banshee, then maybe that's a problem. But if Banshee's got the 500 error, then that's kind of their own fault.
Yeah, he, it's a case of maybe communication and the way it was handled, and it's just a sticky situation because this is what the underlying problem here is there is some issue where these downstream providers can alter things that could impact the revenue generation of the upstream people working on the code.
Right.
That's the overall issue that people are really upset about here, and that's still kind of at play because shouldn't Canonical earn that money since they're using Canonical's code? Right?
Right. Well, who developed Banshee, right? Isn't that who should get it?
I guess so, yeah. Yeah, I would think so.
Maybe the easiest way to do that is if you're putting affiliate codes in your source code, in your docs, you state somewhere that,
yeah, what's the intention
it would
of
be
these?
fair if we did 50-50. If you're the downstream project, you could take 50% and leave the other half to me, and maybe that's fair. And then if it got overly complicated, then Mint could have a quarter, Ubuntu can have a quarter, and Banshee can have half.
Yeah, exactly. And then they'll all be able to go out and get themselves what? What could you buy for that amount of money? The truth is the Amazon thing doesn't generate.
Really cheap. You could buy an MP3.
Yeah. You could buy an MP3 at the Amazon MP3 store. That's exactly it. All right, well, this next story is pretty cool because I'm kind of on the fence. I'm always on the fence when it comes to GNOME 3, but I'm desperately trying to become an embracer of new toy. I don't want to be that guy who just shuts it down because it's something new. You know what I'm saying? And,
that's me. So
yeah. That's your job on the show.
Yeah.
No, this is actually really cool. The GNOME project has launched an official extensions.gnome.org site that helps us GNOME 3.2 transitioners feel a little more at home. Now, you do need GNOME 3.2 for this to work, but check out how slick this is. If you're watching the video version here, you can see it, but audio folks, here's what I'm doing. I'm over on this website, and I just browse the sucker like, any old website, and there's something a little extra here, though. Check this out. If I wanted a battery percentage indicator, I can click on this extension's name, and then there's just a little on-off toggle switch on the far side of the screen. When I toggle that on, it automatically downloads and installs that plugin into GNOME 3.2 for me, that extension. So it's a really slick user experience that, I like that. Plus now I'm adding things back like the CPU scaler, little information that tells me what, the speed step is doing on my CPUs. Yep. And I'm getting all those little bits of information that were taken out that I love to have in GNOME 2's bar. So check out extensions.gnome.org if you're like me and you're trying to make GNOME 3.2 feel a little bit more like home. All right. Two stories here, two more stories, and then we'll move on to the sound card segment. But I thought this one would be interesting because I know this is a hot issue for a lot of folks in our various circles, and that's jobs, and specifically Linux jobs. And this is a pretty interesting infographic, and I'll get the name of the folks who made it here in just a sec. But check this out. They did a survey of the United States, and actually also I think they looked at outside the U.S. too. But here we go. Here's the hottest development skills and types of skills you need for Linux jobs and where you can get them. Number 5, the most important skill to have for Linux jobs, according to this study, is MySQL skills, followed by J2EE, and then C++ skills, and then just general Android skills coming in at number 2. But coming in at number 1, the top 5 most referenced skill area is Java for Android jobs. Then they break it down to types of Linux jobs. 53% of available jobs are for Linux developers, 47 going to sysadmins, and then they say location. Around the world, 70% of the available jobs right now are in the United States, followed by Australia at 14%, Germany 13%. I don't know why, but the United Kingdom comes in at 2%, and Canada 0.5%. Where the hell did they get that from?
Well, their survey might have been skewed based on a low response rate in Canada and so on.
Perhaps. That survey was performed by the Linux Foundation, and you guys can go check that out if you'd like to see that. And then
But yeah, it's 47% of the Linux jobs are sysadmin, and that makes sense. But it seems a lot of Android developer jobs out there.
All right. So the last story on the news docket for this week is just a follow-up to a story last week, which I think I totally called this one. But remember that story I mentioned where Firefox got like 87% of its revenue or 85% of its revenue from their search deal that they have with Google?
Yep.
And that deal hadn't been renewed at this point, and it expired in November, and we weren't sure what was going on, and Mozilla was giving all these weird answers. And then Ed Bott over at ZDNet
speculated that they were still negotiating.
Yeah, they're just negotiating, right? And I mean, it's in Google's interest to have that deal in place, just like it's in Firefox's interest. Well, the Mozilla Foundation actually came out and said the deal is not dead. Our search relationship with Google remains positive for both of us, and we're in active negotiations and have nothing further to announce at this time. We have every confidence that the search partnership will continue to be a strong and growing generator of revenue for the foreseeable future. So there you go. They're just still negotiating, probably the dollar amounts.
Yeah.
And really, why wouldn't Google want to hook up with Firefox? They want that.
They really don't want that to go to Bing.
That's exactly where it would go, too.
As a Firefox user, neither do I.
Right, exactly. You know it would go to Bing. You nailed it, dude.
Well, because they've actually released a beta version of Firefox with Bing as, I think, a move to try to pressure Google into actually renewing the relationship.
I bet you're right. There you have it. All right, Alan. Well, that's all the news for this week. And welcome to Sound Card Troubleshooting. Matt's joining me in studio. Matt, welcome to the Cold Box.
Hello, everyone.
Matt blogs over at matthartley.com, and I saw some of your posts on Google Plus helping people with sound card troubleshooting issues, and I realized you're local and you should come on the show and maybe share some of that, because I know as much as we'd like it not to be an issue still, sound card problems still happen under Linux.
They do. And not only is it a problem that people are confronting, a lot of it is, honestly, it's misunderstood, I think. There's that confusion as to whether or not you're dealing with sound card issues that are relating to your laptop or desktop, but is it a configuration issue?
Right.
Is it
driver? Is it hardware? Or is it just a config?
Exactly, right. Are you going to have to become command line commando to get in there and get it fixed? And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not for everyone.
Okay.
So,
I kind of like my commando skills, though. I'm kind of nerd proud of those.
Never hurts to polish those up.
So you brought some gadgets with you. I see you have a netbook here and some speakers.
I come bearing netbooks and I come bearing speakers, absolutely.
Nice. All right.
So we'll go ahead and just get started. First thing out of the box, we're just going to assume that you've established that your sound card is just not happy. It's not going to happen. We'll just assume that and come back to the other stuff later. So we're going to say bad sound card, no cookie. All right. So we've established that that's an issue. So you have some options. You can either get into the configuration files and fool with that, which frankly, who really wants to do that? Yeah. Or, my friend used Mr. USB. I have some USB speakers, and what I can do is I can actually plug these directly into my notebook.
Yeah.
Like so.
USB is great because a lot of the USB systems, there's like a ton of different on the market, but most of them use like the same chipset in the USB device.
Right.
So it's almost like one universal driver that every Linux distro has already included and it will work with these USB devices. So it's almost like a sure bet.
Exactly. And when you plug this in, it's not like Windows where it's like dunk dunk, and then you have to wait and wait. And then you go have coffee, you have lunch, and you're thinking.
And then you have to choose the device.
Exactly.
And make sure,
there's none of that. So you plug it in and it's instantly detected. And what's cool is if you're using the Pulse Audio volume control, it will actually pop up in real time right there. You can set it default by clicking that little green button off to the right under, which is going to obviously be USB sound, and click that, and you're good to go. It's all set.
Yeah. That is really handy.
It's really cool. And it's like, I think these were like $12. I mean, come on, right?
I have also, I almost had it. Normally we actually have it here. I have a little USB sound device that is no bigger than a thumb drive, and it just has little sound ports sticking out the back of it. Oh, that's that one, actually.
Yep.
That's
probably looks a lot like this. I think this ran me a whopping, and I got it on Amazon Prime, but I think it was a whopping $3.
Yeah.
$4.
It was seriously like, it was just as much to ship it as it was. Of course, I did it with Prime, but it was just as much to ship it normally as it was for the device. And the other thing about it is it's not just good troubleshooting. in recording here in the studio, any audio we take out of a machine, we always bring it through a USB audio device first because that has cleaner sound. It's outside the computer. There's less electronic noises. You know, like onboard sound cards will have a lot of noise.
Exactly. And the advantage of, say, the difference between these two things, this is handy for a desktop if you don't mind, you know, obviously it's low quality sound, but it's not too bad. But if you're using a notebook, it's absolutely critical that you have something portable that you can just plug in and be done with it. I have a laptop at home. Sound card actually broke. It has nothing to do with the operating system. Windows, Linux, whatever. The point of this, you plug this in, you have a whole new sound card for $3.
The chat room's kind of going along with you too, and they're asking, can you get better input sound too? I would imagine input sound would also be slightly better.
You can. One thing I would recommend is if, again, thinking notebook, is I like this little, I think it's an Olympus noise canceling, very, very low end, but very,
you just like clip it to your shirt for like Skype calls or something?
Yeah, it's probably $12. Yeah, go ahead and take a look at it. It's like $12. It's a little Olympus, just in jack, you know.
Yeah, and then you could bring that into the end of the USB sound card.
Exactly.
Now
you're good.
And you clip this to your shirt, and then for Skype and stuff like that, you've got nice, clean audio coming in.
Exactly. And it's got reasonable noise canceling.
That is really cool. Oh yeah, like.
It legitimately, here, I got the little box.
Look at that, it even tilts. This thing is really slick. I like this. Do I have a shot? Well, it's not a great shot, but
yeah, there you go.
It's got a random background, but you can see the device. Yeah, that is really cool. Great find. I might pick myself up one of those.
It's one of those things to where I'm a big fan of having extra, like a drawer full of stuff. You know, when it comes to USB stuff, you can't have enough of it.
I got a garage full of stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a real benefit, I think, to having these things lying around. And I gotta admit, I do this with wireless dongles as well. You can never have, you know, I mean, it's just a good idea, especially if you can get it native. So yeah, it's like $12 for this, like $11 for that, and then $3 for this. I mean, you know, come on. It's an Amazon shopping trip.
I have found, it's funny, I think we both arrived to USB audio being a great solution for Linux from different routes, right? I came at it from the recording perspective.
Right.
You came at it from the troubleshooting perspective, but it's been a great tool. Now, you've got a few blog posts over at matthartley.com people can follow.
I do. One of the most, probably the one that relates to this the most, and frankly, it's a question I get frequently, is why can't I get Skype to work with and Pulse Audio must, you know, die, and you know, all these terrible, terrible comments. And it's like, yes, Skype has its challenges on Linux, as I can certainly attest to, but I would certainly also point out that a lot of it is it's the configuration. A lot of times when you've got your Skype set up, you know, it truly is a matter of, is your mic actually enabled? It usually isn't.
And sometimes things can be selected, or things can be listed a little weird. You can have multiple sound inputs that look a little funky. When you go with the USB mic, it'll be clearly labeled in all the devices as USB, and you know that one is USB.
Exactly.
A lot of motherboards have line in and mic in, and they have digital in, and you know, it's kind of hard for people to know which one to pick.
Exactly. Well, and the biggest tip I will give you on audio when it comes in general is the audio tools that come with Ubuntu or Linux Mint. Ignore them and install Pulse Audio's own applet.
Really?
I mean, and you can just do the volume control.
Is it in the repo?
Unity. Yeah, it's. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I'll actually make sure it's included in the show notes because it's some weird name. But I believe it's PAVU volume, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll correct that in the show notes, of course. But you get that installed, and you can, you know, just run the command for it. It'll pop up for you, and you'll have, because here's the trick: you can set your input all day long.
PVN.
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
Chat room's got it here. It's called a
they're all over it.
PAVU control. Yeah, they're all about it. Yeah.
And so if you get that installed, the beauty of it is that you can set your input all day long, but it may not, especially with something like Skype and USB audio, it may not actually be picking up. So when you're doing your audio test, it's failing. But if you have that set up, you're able to actually say, I want this application to be set to use that input.
Oh, so you can
it's application specific.
Oh, I like that.
And it saves on reboot.
Oh, I really like that.
It's
because, you know, I've got a machine where I've got the USB sound card, right? And then I've got my regular sound card still hooked up with a different set of speakers.
Right.
And it's been handy because I can do, like, some sounds would be really cool. I'm just thinking, like, my game sounds through maybe the big speakers, but some other, like, system sounds through another set of speakers, that kind of thing.
Well, and this is also where that, I don't know if you've ever heard of the tool Ear Candy. It was a tool that came out a while back. I think it may be a little behind the times now, but there was a time it was really cool. You're rocking out to a game, a Skype call comes in, sound dies out, Skype call comes in, you're able to take it automatically. That's really all smooth. Because of Pulse Audio.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I know, Pulse Audio has gotten a bad rap over the years, but I mean, you got to agree, it's gotten better.
Oh, it's gotten really, and I've never been able to, and maybe it's just me, I've never been able to duplicate a lot of the challenges that people have had with it. A lot of folks have had that, that where your CPU is just like eating your computer.
Yeah,
alive.
I haven't had that. I'll tell you, the big problem I've had with Pulse Audio is when it was first rolled out, the front end tools. And even to this day, the front-end tools aren't quite where I want them to be.
Sure.
Because Pulse Audio is a lot more powerful than I feel like the tools let me get access to.
They are. And well, not only that, but it's a little bit like herding cats trying to use Pulse Audio. That's the biggest challenge. Just the GUI rather, is a little,
Yeah.
It's a little hard to mess with, I think. It's got some challenges ahead of it. But
Yeah.
and there's so much you can do with it. I can
Good foundation. For sure.
Well, I mean, like I got a DVD downstairs and I want to listen to what's going on while I'm checking something on the computer. I can route that through
Yeah.
Pulse Audio.
Yeah.
And these are all the things that are possible. It's incredible.
Right.
So
Yeah.
totally worth it.
Is there anything else you want to cover?
I think that's it. Just check me out, matthartley.com, and really appreciate you guys letting me come on the show.
Oh, you bet. This is a topic we've gotten a lot of emails about. So when I saw
Awesome.
your post, I was like, perfect fit. So
Fantastic.
Maybe we'll work on something in the future.
Absolutely. I would enjoy that. I'd enjoy coming back.
All right, Matt. Well, thanks for joining us, and thanks for making the trek down in the cold weather. The Pacific Northwest
Well, certainly appreciate you having me.
foggy and cold. This
Oh,
morning.
my goodness, yes. Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's our look at sound cards under Linux. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. Woo! What a show,
Yes.
there, Alan? Man.
Yes.
Man, thanks to Matt for coming on and talking sound cards with us. I feel like I've learned a lot. I feel like I did, and hopefully you did too. Now, don't forget you can check him out at matthartley.com, and we'll have links to his stuff in the show notes as well. Now, one other link you might want to check out is linuxactionshow.reddit.com, one of the best little Reddits in the whole dang world. Check that thing out. 468 Linux users over there voting on stories that are awesome, submitting stories. Lots of the stuff in the show came from there, and I'll be honest with you guys. Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, we like the more stuff you submit there, the more stuff we can put in the show.
Yeah, and it is making a huge difference. I scour the net for news. That's one of the things I've honed for this show, and the best stuff out there is often in that, at least for open source and Linux news, is often in that Reddit. So thanks to everyone over there who does that. And Alan, probably just a quick mention, if you're out there holiday shopping, you could be like the Alan man, and you could do your shopping through our affiliate links. Alan has been hooking us. I think Alan alone is going to pay for any kind of Christmas that I do end up having this year. So he got his server through there. He's got all kinds of stuff. And you can find links for ThinkGeek or Amazon purchases over in the Jupiter.
All kinds of stuff.
Newegg as well over in the Linux Action Show show notes area. We'll just put links in there, and then you click those, and then it just sends you off to that site. Anything you buy during that shopping session is tagged with credit to Jupiter Broadcasting, which helps me have a very Merry Christmas. So thanks to everyone who does that.
And, you might not think it, but ThinkGeek is a great place to go shopping, even for people that aren't necessarily geeks.
Yeah.
I bought cool gifts for my sister, my dad, and my aunt, and a whole bunch of people at ThinkGeek.
Oh yeah, no, ThinkGeek's great, and some of the stuff is actually good, so you can just get like a whole batch of stocking stuffers, and they're always funny. You can always, like there's a bacon
Recommended
stuff.
stocking stuffer are these little things. They're little handy glasses wiping or cell
that is
phone
cool.
fingerprint wiping things, and they can like hook on your keychain or your belt or whatever.
That's like a magician's trick. That whole cloth just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah,
It's like a magic cloth.
I bought one for everyone last year for Christmas, and I use mine all the time on my glasses and my cell phone screen and my tablets and
Dude, with touch
everything.
screens, I have fingerprints over that crap all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Good thinking. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, and we'll see you right back here next week.